Welcome to Becoming Spiritual, a podcast about the magic that surrounds us and has always been a part of us. I'm your host, Heather Dolan, a passionate seeker dedicated to bringing together beautiful humans who are doing amazing things in this world. Together, we will explore healing modalities and practical spiritual practices that can enrich your everyday life. We will also hear stories of awakenings, many from people in the corporate world who have broken out of the spiritual closet. Wherever you are in your journey, know you have found a community of open-hearted individuals committed to making themselves and our world a better place. Welcome home. Welcome back to Becoming Spiritual. In this episode, I am joined by Crystal Roberts for the first part of a very special two-part conversation. Crystal is a registered nurse with a deep belief in honoring both science and spirituality as essential parts of healing. After years working across a variety of healthcare settings, she came to understand that true well-being often lives in the space where multiple modalities meet. Alongside her nursing background and degree in human service administration, Crystal is trained in crystal, sound, and color therapy, is a Reiki master, although she tends to avoid the title of master since she believes we're all lifelong students on the path of mastery, a sound bath facilitator, and a QHHT practitioner. At the heart of Crystal's work are her intuitive energy sessions, where she weaves together her training, lived experience, and intuitive connection to spirit. In these sessions, Crystal is guided to use a range of techniques that support deep healing, often uncovering past life influences or long-held energetic patterns that may be impacting a person's present life. Her work is gentle, grounded, and deeply intuitive, offering clients the opportunity to release what no longer serves them and reconnect with their own inner wisdom. Crystal is also currently writing a book that weaves together her personal spiritual journey, wellness insights, and messages from her guides. Crystal's story is one of deep inner growth that I think many listeners will resonate with and be able to see a part of themselves in. In part one, we focus on her personal journey, moving from her work as a registered nurse into a more expansive, intuitive, and holistic way of supporting others. Crystal also opens up about one of the most defining catalysts in her life, the heartbreak of divorce, and how that experience ultimately became a turning point that pushed her to step more fully into her purpose. We talk about what it means to walk through identity shifts and uncertainty, and how those moments often become the very things that initiate profound healing and clarity. This conversation is about listening to the quiet nudges of the soul, trusting the path as it unfolds, and allowing life's hardest experiences to shape us rather than close us down. And while today's episode is centered on Crystal's story, this is just the beginning. In part two, you'll get to experience a powerful channeled conversation where Crystal calls in her guides and offers guidance for the collective. She even shares what she is doing and experiencing as she's getting this information from this invisible yet very potent field of information. It's pretty cool. I'm so grateful to share this space with Crystal and can't wait for you all to hear part two. That will come next week, so make sure to tune in for a special extra drop next Friday. In the meantime, be sure to listen to this episode and stay tuned for an exciting announcement about something Crystal and I are working on that I will share at the beginning of the episode next week. So you're not going to want to miss that. We're excited for you to hear. And as always, thank you for listening. And for those that might feel a bit triggered by Crystal's experience around divorce, know this is a moment for you to reflect and perhaps receive a loving message for yourself. You are so loved and you're never alone. Remember that. Thanks for listening. Well, welcome to Becoming Spiritual. Crystal Roberts, so happy to have you here today. Thank you for joining us.
Oh my gosh, Heather, it's my pleasure. I'm so excited to be here.
Me too. So Crystal's joining us from Canada, and we are recording right before the new year, which is so perfect because as we were talking about before we jumped on, Natalie and I will have just released our tarot episode talking about the energies coming in for 2026. I know we're going to talk a bit about that as well. So nothing like starting the new year with a blank slate and lots of magic and opportunity for all the amazing magic to come in this year in 2026. So I'm happy we could do this right at the beginning of the year.
Oh, me as well. Just perfect timing. There's been so much energy swirl this year, and I feel like there's a whole new energy being ushered in for 2026. So I'm very, very excited to be kind of at the tail end of your year/beginning. It's perfect.
Yes, agreed. And we're going to talk a little bit about 2025 and what that journey was like for you, because there's some, I think, beautiful lessons in there. But before we get to that, can you tell our community who you are and the work you're doing in the world?
Oh, sure. So I'm a registered nurse by profession, but in the background and for several years, I've had such an interest in more holistic healing and really find the blend between Eastern and Western medicine really beautiful. So I do a lot of work on the side that is very separate from that more traditional healthcare work. So I do channeling, I'll do energy intuitive work where I'll do Reiki and sound therapy and crystal therapy, and a lot of past life messages will often come through from loved ones when I do that, just to help people focus in on the healing that they need in that moment. Oftentimes, I find that there's some sort of cellular memories that come through from past lives that can bleed into this life. And so finding out what lessons from a past life maybe are integrating or overlapping in this lifetime helps find healing here in the now. So all of those beautiful things. I do some sound baths once a month in my community. I do those privately when people ask. And then I've met you, Heather, through work that we've both done with a renowned QHT practitioner, Sarah Bressman-Cosme, in the field of hypnosis.
And on that note, you are part of Sarah's latest book. If you want to talk about that for a second, because we had Cristy on, so we'll link that episode. So Cristy was one of the subjects that Sarah was able to get just absolutely astounding information from, and you were the other.
I was. Yeah, it was just a really chance encounter, her being a fellow practitioner in the field. I was so curious as to her technique. So I booked a session with her, which, as we know, is really challenging to get into. But there had been a cancellation.
Like there's multi-year wait list. So this is like a big deal. And Cristy had the exact same experience, and I had the exact same experience.
Yes.
So so cool.
Talk about spirit and the universe, putting you in the path that you should. And so I went on her website, and there was one date that opened up, and it was 2 days from when I was looking. And I thought, I think this must be a computer glitch. But I booked it. I thought she's probably going to reach out and say, sorry, that was an error in my booking system. But it wasn't. She reached out and she just said, oh my gosh, I was wondering who was going to get the session. I just had a cancellation. And we had our session, and what came through aligned with the themes that she had been writing for the most recent book she has just put out. So then she asked me to do several other sessions to round out those messages that came through. And I ended up in her book. So I'm not captured under Crystal there. I'm captured under the name Megan. And I think in a couple chapters, Mary. So Sarah chose to put me under with a pseudonym name. Just she thought maybe that I would feel more comfortable easing into this world and becoming more known in it. So that's what we did. So if you read that book, I'm Mary and Megan. And so it was just a really healing experience for me to see how she works, to connect with more practitioners in the field through working with her. And then having like the messages from my past lives actually in printed form so I can reference them so easily has just been a really beautiful thing.
And I've got to think, because we're going to talk about this, the healing that happened from being a part of that process, I would imagine. So we'll talk about that. But I just think that's so cool. The information that you get and what comes through you and what you're able to share is just so inspiring. So thank you for that work and putting that all out into the world for all of us to read. Sarah's Avalon book, which we've linked before, we'll link it again just for those who have maybe not found it yet. If you want to listen to it on Audible or buy it, we'll put a link there so you can learn more about Mary, Megan, Crystal's story and past life, because it's pretty cool.
I love that.
So one thing before we kind of dive into the 2025 energy is, I think something that I want to talk about for a minute is the fact that you and I and Kathleen, our recent episode that dropped last month on yoga, are a bit unique, I think, for those that I've had on the podcast so far, where we're all in our jobs. We have different jobs out in the world. And we, I realize sometimes I use the term, or we've talked about kind of the 3D, and some people might be like, what does that mean? And it's really just the everyday. It's just a way to capture the everyday life that we're in is kind of considered third dimension, where, they talk about being in a third dimension. And when you talk about the spiritual space, it's usually a higher dimension than the third dimension. So that's why, just for those who might be a little like, why do they keep saying 3D? That's why. And I probably should have explained that a while ago on previous episodes. So if I didn't, sorry, you're getting it now. But in our kind of 3D everyday life where we're getting paychecks, we have this work that we're doing where we're able to bring really our whole selves and kind of all the magic that we see and feel and receive into that space in a really, I think, loving and intentional way. And so I just want to talk about that for a minute, because the work you're doing, this work as a nurse, as a healer, as a caregiver, how you're in that, and then how you're doing this other healing, caregiving work in the spiritual space, just you've been able to put those both together and really be aligned to that. And so I would love to hear that journey of coming to this place where you are able to be really your most authentic self, no mask, not hiding who you are or the work that you do, and actually being able to bring it in to help people in all facets, which is how I see my work as well.
Oh, I agree. You are doing that. And it's been such a joy to talk to you actually and hear how you've done that and what a gift you are to the people that you interact with and the blend of the modalities. So I've appreciated that as a practitioner and hearing that. And I think we need more of that to try to not have so much of a separation, because there is such importance to both worlds, and both worlds resonate with people fully, partially, or in different ways. And I think sometimes there are individuals who feel like they need maybe more of a westernized or traditional version of something, but their souls are actually calling out for more of that spiritual type practice that we offer. And so when they get a little nugget of that, it lights up something inside of them. And I know that's what happened to me. And that's how I got involved with this work, was just little nuggets I feel like the universe had given me throughout my life. I'm an 80s baby. And so there was a show on when I was growing up called Unsolved Mysteries. And I don't know if you watched that, but
I did.
it was
Yep.
equally...
It always freaked me out, but yep, I know what it is. Yep.
Equally terrifying and interesting.
Yep.
And, a lot of the stuff that he would talk about in the alien world, I mean, it just sparked such curiosity and fear. So that was a learning. And then I had a friend when I was a very early teenager give me a crystal, and I just felt so much power coming from that crystal. And it awakened something in me that I hadn't been aware of before. And then she took me to a holistic healing bookshop, which was fairly rare back then. I mean, now you can go to any bookshop and there's so much about spirituality on the bookshelves. Back then, that wasn't the case. So I had my brain open up to this whole other world, and I got really into astrology, again, crystal work. And then I came across a psychic who did hypnosis, much like you and I have been trained in and that Sarah does. And she had written books, and the information that came through from her cracked me wide open. I had been raised in like a traditional faith. My grandfather was a minister. And so I remember sitting in church often and just thinking, although I believe in some of this, it doesn't all resonate with me. And I read that book and I just thought, this is it. And it was such a lesson in listening to your internal guidance. And just that's what I tell people now. If you're wondering, what direction in life to take, or if this is right or wrong, just listen internally. Does it light you up inside? And if it does, to me, that's a yes. And that was every kind of thing that was sort of laying itself out in front of me, like Reiki, I did that, and crystal therapy and sound therapy, all of these things just were a giant yes. And I couldn't understand how they were all going to fit together. At that time, I thought maybe I was just a junkie learning about, all of the spirituality and found it very interesting. But I have been able to blend all of the learnings and make my own practice and find my way to make something special that resonates with me. So it's been a journey, but a really interesting and beautiful one.
I love that. And then what were the seeds that were planted for you to be a nurse?
Well, that also was very convoluted. I actually went into education first. I had, since I was a young girl, dreamt of being a teacher, and I absolutely loved it. I felt like I was walking in another dimension when I got my first job at a school. I was so happy, like floating on clouds. And I was hired to work as an education assistant while going to school. And my husband, soon to be ex-husband, But he was a teacher as well. And it was my third year working at that school. They hired him and he wasn't as interested in being a teacher. He'd always wanted to be a police officer. So he ended up getting a call from a police service where he had applied a few years prior and they asked if he would reapply. And he did, and he got hired. And I was very much in love and followed him to an entire new city, assuming that I would just be able to jump into education and finish my degree in this new city. And they said, nope, you've missed the deadline. You actually are going to have to wait a full year. And I didn't know what to do with myself. And my sister said, you know what? Like, education's never lost. She's a registered nurse and she really loved it. She said, you'd have all of these credits that would transfer over. Why don't you think about going into this accelerated nursing program? And I looked into it and there was, again, just talking about how the world works, there was a class opening in 2 months. And I thought, well, it'll be the same thing. Admissions have been over. But they actually had a spot open up and I was able to get in lickety split. And I finished my nursing degree in 20 months. It was a very, no breaks at all. It was very intensive. And I got into that and it ended up being a lovely balance for me because in the education system, it's very rigid as far as time off, your days of work, your hours of work. And the healthcare does have rigidity as well, but there's more flexibility in your shift patterns. And I liked that. It allowed me to have some more freedom in my personal life and do some of this work when I wanted to as well. So I very much miss working with children. I feel like they are just the most beautiful souls in the world. Like, they are such a blessing and that energy they bring is like nothing else. But there are children and healthcare and there's healing and education and all of that encompassed in it. So it's been a really great career for me.
Oh, I love that. The universe just, put those breadcrumbs. And that's where this is such a perfect example of how the universe might put up some type of roadblock, which we see as a roadblock and just, oh my gosh, I can't teach. And what am I going to do? And it's that redirection and your sister telling you about nursing. And, I usually find there's usually a couple of seeds that are planted where, especially if you don't listen, where then something else comes up where all of a sudden you're, see like a big billboard where it's like nurses needed now or something, something like that. And you're just like, wait, why is all of this coming? And people, of course, say there's that bias of like your brain is now picking up on this messaging and now you're noticing things that you didn't before. And it really is the universe. And it's not, I know people can explain it away, but it's the universe putting these things in your path and having you take a different road home, or all of a sudden you do notice that billboard that you've driven past 50 times and never paid attention, but now you get stopped in front of it. And it's like, oh my gosh, what is this? That's happened to me so many times. And the messages have been bananas that are on there. And so I love how you are guided into this profession, which obviously, you can still touch those children's lives and be impactful in that way. So even though I could see you being an absolutely amazing teacher, but who knows, like so many teachers, you might have burned out, and then been like, oh my gosh, now what? Because I don't know what it's like in Canada, but I know here it's so tough.
Same here. And healthcare is tough too. But the really beautiful thing about healthcare is that there are so many different modalities and units, and you can change as many times as you want. And I've done mental health and labor and delivery and oncology and just acute medicine. And so every time you're feeling like I am getting a little bit burnt out in this area, there's an opportunity to shift. And I don't feel like educators have as many options for that. So it is a blessing that way.
Yeah, so wonderful. I love how that path was woven. And I think
Me too.
If one of the messages for people is just look out for those little breadcrumbs because they're always there. The universe is always communicating. And so if you're feeling stuck in like, oh my gosh, what's 2026 going to bring for me? And there's no messages for me. They're there all the time. And you can ask for specific signs. So just test it. The universe loves to play.
I agree. I love that, Heather.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about 2025 because it was the year of the snake, which is huge shedding. And I know for you personally, it was a really challenging year, a hard year, but there's been so many lessons. And part of what we're going to talk about in this episode is how you have healed and the work you've done with others and how that's healed you, which is just so absolutely magical and beautiful. So tell us a little bit about 2025 and what this journey was like for you as a healer and intuitive channel and all these things. Because I think sometimes too, people think, oh, well, if you're spiritual, you're just on cloud 9 and so evolved and like all these things don't touch you, which is just not true. Like we're all still in this 3D reality dealing with 3D stuff. Car trouble, bills, heartbreak, we're all managing no matter what magic and gifts we have. I think all of these tools are tools to navigate these challenges and see how we can navigate them in maybe a different way.
I love that. And that is exactly it. I think that the way that, you present in the world, and I do just sort of naturally have a positive disposition. And people do think that like life isn't going to touch her the same way necessarily that it might touch other people. But universe, we're here to learn. And you can't really do it as well as you can unless you're facing some sort of adversity. And it can be on a smaller level or it can be a grand one. And this year was incredibly challenging for me. And, my business handle is Watermelon Wellness. And I would be, remiss not to admit that there were so many times this year that I actually personally didn't feel well. I felt really like low and crummy and was experiencing a lot of heartache. So my husband asked for a separation very early. No, so I guess, sorry, he asked for a divorce this year, but had asked for a separation at the end of last year. And I hadn't realized that, when he asked for that separation, that he had already in his mind kind of left the relationship. I was under the impression that we were taking time apart and possibly looking at reconciliation. And that turned out not to be the case. He had moved on immediately. And, I didn't know that right away. And it took some months for the full picture to emerge. And I feel like my idea of what that relationship and my future looked like was a bit delayed just because I guess he hadn't been as forthcoming as I would have hoped. So I was in a mindset of, okay, we're going to work on this. We're going to get back together. And he was already long gone. And so now, once I found that out, it's just taken me a while to wrap my head around that. And I feel like divorce is probably one of the most challenging life experiences that a person can go through. And, if we look at the scale in psychology, they talk about the most impactful thing for people's lives, and it's losing a job, making a move, the death of the spouse, and divorce. And divorce used to be second on that, with death of a spouse being first. And they've actually moved divorce up to number one. And I now have that understanding of why that might be. And, when someone passes away, I feel like sometimes people rally around people who've had a spouse pass away. And there's not always an understanding that someone who's going through a divorce could use that same support. And I know that now, and I didn't know it then. So I think I'll approach my friends who go through divorce in a very different way moving forward. So yeah, it's been an incredibly challenging year navigating that. But I also had things open up to me that I never have before, because I would say the last year prior to our separation, spending a lot of my energy trying to solve the puzzle of the troubles and like, why is this not working? And why can't we get over seemingly very easy humps? There was nothing huge in our relationship that couldn't be solved. And so I was really struggling with that. And my energy was focused there. But when he left and moved out, I started to open myself back up into the healing world. And I allowed myself to say yes to a lot of things that I wouldn't have because I was putting energy into that relationship. And one of those things was traveling to do workshops in the wellness industry. And I was blessed to meet you at one of those and many other beautiful people. And that has been one of the most healing things for me. So, when I go to these workshops, I'll offer my healing sessions to people. But while I'm giving those sessions, I feel like you and the messages that come through for all of you were equally as healing for me, and connecting with your soul and the energy that you have like around you, your aura, your spirit team, just feeling that beautiful love was such a healing moment for me. And when I come home from those workshops, I was able to carry that and hold on to some of that, and also connect with people who have had similar experiences, and made me feel a little less alone. And you're right, maybe that person didn't go through a divorce, but they had a loss of this, or they had something that made them feel a similar way. And just that recognition again, that we all are navigating these challenges. And how do you want to do that? And I will be fully honest, I feel like I haven't navigated it always perfectly. I've had some sad days this year. And again, that's not really my personality to be so down in the dumps, but this really threw me for a loop. And I think that that's life. And I think it's recognizing again that you just never know what's coming your way, but that it is always for a reason. And I don't want to be with someone who doesn't want to be with me and doesn't see my value. And as much as it hurts to release like a 20-year relationship, I want to be surrounded by people who love me and who think that I'm special and want to cultivate that relationship. So if that isn't my partner, which it clearly isn't, then I want to be able to release that. And as you said, it's the year of snake. It's the year of shedding. And I have tried my best to work through that shedding. I still have a ways to go. But I think maybe it's important to tell our listeners on today that Year of the Snake really doesn't start until I think it's like March or February, is it?
The horse is coming in from a Chinese zodiac. I think we move into the year
Chinese
of the horse,
zodiac.
which we talk about. Natalie and I talked a lot about that forward movement, having that strength and support. And this is forward momentum. It's like, it's doing the work in a different way. It's like probably a lot more of almost being in one place and going super deep, where it's like that snake, where you're going into the earth and you're sitting with things and really like deeply learning lessons and processing. Yep.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what it was. And I think we're in the year of the snake, but we're also completing this 9-year cycle. And I look back over the 9 years and there's just been, a lot of other challenges. Like my sister was diagnosed with cancer a couple years ago. And just, you look back and you think, okay, it was all kind of leading. She's healthy. She had surgery and she's going to be okay. And we're so grateful because she's just the love of my life. She's my best friend. So blessed that she's still here. But there are all of these things, I feel like, leading up to almost this climactic event. It was the climax to, several huge things. And then this divorce and having something happen that I never thought would. I never thought I would get divorced. I think most people that get married don't. But I also never thought that it would end the way that it would. And this person would do some of the things that they had. And so it's just a reminder that, again, you just never know what's coming, but that it's for a reason. And it's a culmination of shedding things that obviously no longer aligned, despite how much I wanted them to, and moving into, like you said, this year of the horse. And I know I'm going to take the next few months to still continue along this healing journey. And then I really do want to take the strength of the horse and just run forward and think more about me and my next steps and release the past and the hurts and move on as best as I can.
Yeah, I love that. And I have no doubt you will do that. And I'm and thinking about the work you did and that releasing and being able to heal from the healing that you're providing to others. So many people move into the spiritual space to do healing work. And most of the time it starts for themselves, like seeking out that psychic because they want to know something, or Reiki because of an illness, or, someone just tells them about it and they're like, oh, cool. Kind of how you had that crystal and it just opened you up and then, led to so many different stops on your path as a healer, as a practitioner. And I did get to experience, I'm very lucky, at Sarah's workshop this late fall. I got to have a session with Crystal and so beautiful. But I'm curious, like, as you're getting messages for people, intuitive messages, are you actually feeling things when you're doing sessions for clients where it's a message for them? Because just like in the book, that's why I love the QHHT, as Sarah's getting information and putting this information into the book. It's not just a message for you in your past life. It's always something about the lessons for the collective, for humanity. And so it's so much bigger than just you and me, which is why I feel like spiritual stuff is so fun and magical, because it's like we get a message and it's like, oh, this is supposed to be for the collective, but it's for me too. Or this is for me, but oh my gosh, it can apply to the collective. Or someone that you end up talking to the next day and you're like, oh my gosh, I just got information about this and now you're bringing it to me, whatever it is. Like all those things tend to happen sometimes in really short, succinct ways. But as you're kind of getting healing messages for people, do you feel like your soul's kind of like, listen up? Because I do remember Sarah puts you under and you answer all these questions. I don't know what, an hour and a half or like almost 2 hours of questions. You're tapping in and getting all this information, which I want to talk about. But in your channeling, there's so much fun and lightness. And even if there's difficult topics where people are like, tell me about this crazy event that happened that could feel dark or scary, or like the TV show, like Unsolved Mysteries, like, oh my gosh, what happened there? It's a conspiracy, there was a conspiracy and a cover up and whatever. It's so light. Like the information that you get, I feel like you channel it in a really light way. And I remember one of the messages that came through, or multiple times, kind of your guides or the beings that came through were like, the subject knows that we're talking to her because she keeps doing XYZ and we keep telling her to knock it off and move on. It's just sometimes like kind of direct, but then I'm assuming also kind of like you're getting a lot of these other breadcrumbs coming to you outside of the smack in the face of like, okay, stop it now. Like, this is not serving you. So you need to chop, move on. Let's start working on these great things. So I'm guessing that's helpful to continually hear this, that it's like planting those seeds and eventually like, oh, okay, I get it. Like it's sunk in now. But I'm just curious, like, what is that like for you to have these interactions?
I love you saying that because that is a reminder to me. I mean, it's something that my dad almost said, like he did say that this weekend because they've watched me go through this year and how hard it's been. And I think he's like, that's enough now. You've got to get out of the sadness. Like enough is enough. And I was like, well, Dad, I know, but it's just been so hard. He said, I know, that's why I've been very nice and gentle with you, but like, that's enough. And that's sort of what they say too. They're like, okay, we've told you multiple times. People will come back for sessions with me and they'll ask the same question they asked at a previous session and they will say, the answer's the same. Sometimes we don't want to hear that answer, so we ask the same
or we're
question.
just not ready to receive it. Like we can't receive it in that same way. Yeah.
Yes, you're exactly right. And so they will say it's still the same message. But I think from what I gather is that here on Earth, our personalities as they are when we incarnate are very similar at the sort of cellular level as they are on the other side. And I am a person who loves humor. If you want to connect with me, tell me a joke, be funny. I love laughing. I love that sense of joy that I feel bubble up as it escapes from your mouth. And I think that's why they connect with me with humor a lot because it resonates with me. There are often multiple energies coming through at the same time. And the more serious energies sometimes hover kind of, I'll say, on this left side of my brain. And the person with the humor will often come forth more strongly. The other more serious entities sometimes will step in. And I've had the more humorous, lighter energies actually turn and say to them, that's enough now. Like if you're getting a little bit too heated, like we can deliver these messages without having that tone in a way. And I think they probably recognize that the 3D world and the energy here often is heavy. And we don't always need the messaging to come with a heavy hand, that it can be delivered sometimes with a little bit of a lighter energy or a bit of humor attached, which I love and appreciate.
Yeah, for sure. And as a receiver of those messages and I guess a witness to the process and how you deliver the messages that you receive, it really is that way. It feels different from, I think, having seen other people do similar processes, which I know everyone's different, but yeah, yours is so light and fun and you laugh so much. And I'm like, oh, I want some of that. I need some of the less serious, as you were saying, like how we are here is similar to on the other side. I'm like, I want to be more fun and silly and all. I don't know.
And
I have
I
like
want
my
you
serious
too.
pants
Yes.
on. Yeah, I feel like you already are though. I feel like you have so much light and levity to you. And I feel like I need to step into more of that. And hopefully that is part of who I am.
Well, I don't know if I can share your session, but that is what came through so strongly when we did your individual session. I saw you that way. I saw your spirit, out twirling outside in nature. And Heather, it was just free and beautiful and very much light. But I think it brings back to just, again, where we are in this 3D world and the heaviness of the energy sometimes and the competing demands we have. I mean, we talked earlier today even just about the holiday season and the stress that can bring. And it can dim some of that. And it's just taking a step back and trying to reconnect with that energy. And even doing this with you today has just lit me up and brought me into such a great, beautiful space. And I know I'm not the first person you've done this with. So you are doing that. So I hear what you're saying, but recognize what you are doing because you are putting yourself in that space, maybe more than you realize.
Thank you. I receive that. I appreciate that. So before we switch, because I know you have graciously agreed to channel, and I want to hear about what that process is like for you, because everyone's process is different. From a channeling perspective, I want to ask this. I'm curious, information you've gotten so far, whether it's from sessions with clients or the work you've done or just messages, anything that's come through for 2026 before we get like a channel message, anything you've seen or heard that you want to share with the audience?
I think this won't surprise you, but just that the awakening of people into the more spiritual world and some of the things that are going on is happening at such an accelerated pace. And again, with the year of the snake, we're shedding old belief systems. And I can even speak to that with my own family because, again, like my mom raised with her dad being a minister and my father was raised in a very traditional faith. They have listened a lot to my sister, and I talk about this, and you can see these little light bulbs going off in their brain. And I just think that that is going to be happening in mass numbers that we haven't seen before. Not that people are going to have this like awakening that's like a light turning on completely in one day, but again, just opening themselves up to the possibility of something that they haven't considered before or had heard, but were completely closed off to. And I think that that is so exciting because I know in the work that I do, there are a lot of people that come to see me and they'll say, I believe in this, but my spouse doesn't, or my children don't, and they feel very isolated and alone. And we have a beautiful opportunity in the work that we do, Heather, to connect with people that are of like minds. But when you leave those settings and you go home and you're not surrounded by people, it is challenging. But what I'm hearing is that there are going to be opportunities for more and more people to say, you know what, actually, I would like to talk to you about that, or I'm interested in that. I'm going to get my own book because that's calling to me. And not everyone is going to awaken in the same way. And that's the beautiful thing about human beings is that we all have different gifts and different energies, but that we are finally going to start lifting sort of the glasses off that have been fogged up, that have seen us looking at the world in very specific traditional ways and connecting with each other and recognizing the gifts that we have and the information out there that maybe we haven't tapped into, that it's really going to be happening in a way that we haven't seen before.
Yeah. So much hope. Like that's what it gives me is hope. And I know for me, similarly, I love what you said about, everyone has to find their own way of connecting to things. For you, it might have started with a crystal. For me, it was intuitive body work and then kind of a reawakening from a book. Everyone has their different ways. Some people are so scientific minded. So there are people out there who, like the Bruce Liptons of the world, who are so magical and spiritual, but so into the DNA and the science and can say, we know this is how energy works and the universe works. And you can't deny it because there is scientific proof. And so if that's what might resonate for someone to say, hey, let me open up this aperture of just how I see the world. And maybe there is more than just kind of these molecules and, whatever else everything is made up of from an energetic perspective. So maybe instead of just looking at it from that scientific perspective, there is that magical of, it's shifting and changing. And it could be this one minute and this the next minute. And what is it trying to teach me or tell me or get me to focus on for my own growth and learning? And so I love that. And I know for me, one of the messages that came through, which at first was a little disappointing, because I had asked about some awakening of specific people in my life. And I said, well, that happened in 2026. And, of course, we all have free will. So who knows? Things have changed. Even just the planet and the planetary energies have shifted and sped up, where we thought the place that I think we're going to be in 2026 was much further down the road. And humanity's making so much progress as a species and in this plane that I think things are speeding up and happening maybe more quickly than a lot of people anticipated doing predictions and those kinds of things years ago. But the person said to me, you're going to put a lot of that focus, kind of how you were talking about your energy, into your relationship and your marriage. That those people, when they do go through their full-blown awakening journey, they're going to need you and your attention is needed elsewhere right now. And so it's not happening and that's okay. And I thought that makes so much sense because there's still so much that I want to do and learn and, step into. And it would be difficult if you're trying to guide others along a path and feel like your energy needed to go there. So that's, again, kind of that message from the universe of where it feels like a roadblock. Because, of course, my initial thought was like, oh my gosh, that's so sad. Why is that not happening? And then as we delved into what that meant, it was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. But sometimes we can't see that. And sometimes we don't get that message right away. So we only get the one piece and it's like, nope, that's not happening. And it can feel really like, okay, what's wrong? Like, this is so hard or whatever it might be. But when you start to see the other pieces, it all falls into place and it's, okay, that makes sense.
Totally. And maybe not now, but that doesn't mean not ever. And I appreciate you sharing that because when I do my sessions, there's so much information that comes through. I don't remember it at all. Yeah. So hearing some of those things again, it's like, oh, cool. Yep. That's, right. That's what came through. So that's really cool.
Yeah. And I'm curious, I realized something I want to mention of also when you talked about your relationship and the energy you were putting into that, of the universe not only is it your own worthiness of being worthy of love and receiving that love as much as you're giving out, and you, of course, deserve that, is also that time and energy that you were devoting to that relationship and not having that opportunity to fully step into you and all of your greatness and what you're here to do in the world. And for me, I don't know if you find this, if you fall back on this at all during these really challenging times, but I believe so strongly that there's such a beautiful plan that, of course, we've all mapped out ahead of coming here into this existence and stepping into this life, that as hard as things can be that we're going through, I have to remember like, oh, I planned this because there's so much to learn. And in the moment, it can be like, oh, great job. Why did you do that? There's no way I would have said, sign me up for this. But we know people sign up to come here and lose limbs and lose loved ones and have so much personal tragedy sometimes. But they were like, yeah, sign me up for that. Sign me up for that. Sign me up for that. I want to be on like the super highway of learning and getting all the information. So people do choose hardship. And not to say it's not like a spiritual bypassing or apathy of saying, I can't have empathy for these people who are going through extremely difficult circumstances, tragic, war and homelessness and all those things. But something that brings me back to center is this person's on their path. And for whatever reason, well, I know the reason, they chose this to grow because they saw this as a huge opportunity to grow. And I know when I bring myself back to that place, it can help, because usually I feel guilt and I feel stress of like, oh my gosh, I feel like I have to help, but I don't know how I can help. How can I help? And sometimes you can. And then other times there's nothing you can do other than, I shouldn't say that. You can send them energy. You can send them light. You can send them love, which does matter. It does help. But I'm curious if that's something, a mindset at all that you've pulled on, or a knowing of like, okay, I'm going through this, but I planned this because there's so much that I needed to learn. So I'm curious, like, has that come into your field?
I think that is probably one of the most amazing questions you could have asked, because that is my belief. And I do fall back on that a lot. And we have conversations in my family and friend groups about this, like, this person's experiencing this, and like, is there a God in the world? Like, how could this happen if there was? And, I do believe that we do chart these really challenging things for the evolvement of our spirits and the growth of our souls. But this specific journey with my husband and I was really interesting because in all of the channeling I would do and connecting in with the energy, the message kept coming back that, you were supposed to get married. You were not supposed to get divorced. What was supposed to happen is that you would help this individual heal a lot of their wounds, and you would develop into this really well-balanced divine masculine and divine feminine couple. And for whatever reason, no matter what I did to support this person, and believe me, I had growing of my own to do too. I was, we all do, but I couldn't get him to that point. And so this experience has actually left me feeling like I've been torn off the path that I charted, because this wasn't actually what we had charted. But what has also come through is that, again, we all have free will. And so this is a decision that he's had to make. And so my question is, well, if this wasn't the way that it was supposed to go, how does that affect my path and what I charted for myself? Like, am I going to have to come back, or am I going to have to do work on the other side to make up for the experience that didn't come to fruition? And they said, no, we're just going to put someone else now in your path that's going to allow that lesson to emerge that you needed. And so I think that was a beautiful thing to even recognize, that if the person that you charted something to happen with isn't going to occur, that there's always a backup plan, because we are here to have free will and decide if we are going to experience what we put in or not, or, attack it in a different way than maybe we had charted on that other side. But that you don't want all the pieces and the people, the support people, to have their charts crumble because you made certain decisions. And the universe is working with all of us to ensure that our lessons still come to fruition. So I'm hopeful that once I heal, there will be love for me in the future, and that I will find that divine masculine and we'll have that balanced relationship. So something to look forward to.
Absolutely going to have that. I know that for sure.
Oh,
but I think that is really important is also, we've already touched on the free will piece. And so we can have these plans, but in the end, we have free will. And so they can change. And so while, we can see this hardship and stuff, knowing that we can't control anybody else. They have their own free will, and all we can control or work on is the focus back to self, which was what a lot of the session that Natalie and I had. But how can we do that work on the inside so then from an outward perspective, what we can put out into the world, in the universe, is this loving energy where we're coming from a place of, we're already whole. We don't have to work to be whole, despite what people think they need someone to complete them. It's not Jerry Maguire, and you don't need someone else to complete you. You are whole in and of yourself, but doesn't mean that, there's lessons that everyone is here to teach us. I just love how you shared that, because I think it's a totally different perspective of, oh my gosh, well, if this was our path together, like you could be in a panic and feel like I'm not going to get the lessons and feel like I'm going to be trapped in this cycle of coming back to repeat. And it's like, nope, we got another plan. Like, there's infinite possibilities. And because it's so unique to have free will here, it's like, there's a dozen backup plans that'll keep coming through. And just the more you share that light and love with others, no doubt that it's just going to get better and better.
Thank you. I love that.
I love it. Okay. So talk really quickly, because I love that you're going to do a little channeling first. So what is this like for you, being a channel? Like, because I know it's been a iterative process for you. And you talked about how you always thought you needed someone else to bring you into a state. So obviously when you're working with Sarah, she's putting you into a bit of a hypnotic state to be able to channel messages. So what is that like for you? What does it feel like?
It feels like a couple things. They telepathically will speak to me, and then they show me images. So I'm a very visual person. So they will almost sometimes play like a movie reel in my head. And then the way that they speak to me telepathically, they also sometimes give energetic nudges. I had a session with a client about 2 months ago, and there was a really, really sad past life that came through. And I just actually didn't want to share it, because I'm like, this is so, so sad. I'm like, what good is this going to do? And they very explicitly said to me, this is not up to you. That we're not asking you to decide what messages come through. We're telling you what to say, and you tell this person. And I was like, okay. And they were so strong, because inside my head, I was having this back and forth with them. Like, I don't know if this is going to be helpful. And I just got out of the way, and I said, this is exactly what happened. And they're being very clear that I need to say this to you. And it made so much sense to her. And so I feel sometimes that I question what's coming through, and that is very much Crystal getting in the way. Most times I can get out of the way and just let the messages flow, but sometimes I'll get in the way, and then they very energetically and telepathically shove me back out of the way and say, just let the messages flow. But you're right, it was not always this easy. I didn't always have this trust in myself. It really started to come through when I did Reiki on people. I just thought, I want to connect with something small. So I started asking Spirit to tell me what their spirit animal was. And then I would allow those images to come through and start trusting those messages more and more. And then they would give me more messages, like talk to me about past lives, or really guide me to an area on someone's body that was causing them problems and give me a message about it, not just the feeling that comes with Reiki. So I was listening to those. And then through the work that I did with QHHT and hypnosis, I had a session first with a lady called Candace Crawman, and she put me under, and it was just astounding. I saw so much visually and like just cracked things open. And then when I went to Sarah and did my hypnosis with her, I saw the visual, but I was also hearing these messages come through. And then they, at one point, I think it was like the second session in, they're just like, basically, just get out of the way. You don't even need to see her, just let us speak. And I did.
No more crystal filter.
No more crystal filter. Just let us do our thing. And then I went to a workshop with her, and I had someone come up to me and they said, you're not under hypnosis, right? You're actually channeling. And I said, what do you mean? And there's like, you're not being put in a hypnotic state to go back to a previous life. You're channeling messages. I was like, okay, interesting. And then I realized the more work I did with Sarah, it was more of a channeling, but I was using her ability to make me feel comfortable in that space, to get into that space more easily. And I felt that I needed that. She has a beautiful voice, She provides a really safe space for others to ask questions, where I felt like the information must have to come through with that second party involved. And then I thought, well, let's just try without it. And I just now am able to do it in my head, to put myself in the state to ground and protect myself. So I think that's important for all of us that do this energetic work or are empathic or truly anyone in the world. Like, protect your energy, put yourself in a safe space so that you are ensuring that energy of the highest intent is coming through when you're doing this work and isn't being influenced by anything that you don't kind of really want there. So that's how I do it. I'm able to get out of the way now because I've done it so often. I know what it should feel like. I know if it's not right and that something else might be interfering or if I'm interfering, and I reset myself. But it was just an evolution over time. And I think, again, to what we spoke about earlier in this session is that the messages are wanting to come through so strongly now. And they're looking for an avenue. And so they're making it easier for me to get out of the way because they're just kind of like pushing.
Yeah.
Like pushing so hard. And that is 2026. Like I said, I think they're like, let's get this out because people are hungry for it. They're finally opening up to it. And there's more channels that I've ever seen on social media and on TV coming forward. Like, this was not a thing. It was so unique in the past. And I feel like more and more people are tapping into these gifts and we all have them. So that's my story though.
Yeah. You remember since you threw out the fun 80s, remember like the psychic hotline? Do you remember? I was born in 76. So there was like this psychic hotline that you could call like for psychic medium, like a 900 number or whatever for probably like $15 a minute or something crazy. But like you'd seen these things advertised all the time and it was like, ooh, oh my goodness. And now you can just open up social media. And the biggest thing, what you already touched on, is just resonance, is making sure if you reach out or you see someone, how does that message feel in your body when you receive it, when that person's speaking, whatever they might be sharing? Does that resonate for you? That's really important.
Yes, exactly.
Because we have to use a lot of discernment, which that has been a topic of conversation.
100%. Just because someone is in the spiritual world and says that they're spiritual is not always true, or what they're bringing forth is not something you're ready or wanting to receive or speaks to you. So I agree. It's about what we said earlier. How does it speak to you? Does it light you up inside? The word you use is perfect. How does it resonate? Listen to that. It's so important.
Yeah. So if you feel like you're getting fear, like you start listening to someone's messaging, which I have lots of people on social that I follow, and it just feels like they're spewing all this fear. And it's like, listen to this message now. Join my channel over here in order to hear all the things and what's coming and prepare yourself for the chaos and the And for me, that's all like, nope. I'm not following into that trap.
Yes,
I'm just like, unfollow. No.
Same.
Like if you're trying to kind of trap people into this, hey, you need to hear my message or else kind of thing.
Yes.
Chances are, for whatever reason, doesn't mean that a lot of the information they're getting isn't accurate, but we know that messages that come through should not incite fear inside of us. And not that everything is rainbows and butterflies and all light. There are hard things in the world, but at the same time, sometimes some of those messages that people end up sharing aren't necessarily meant to be shared in certain spaces, or other people aren't meant to receive those. And so just really tune into the energy of, how you are feeling, because that's going to be your best compass of, is this something that I should listen to and follow?
Yes. And I think, there historically has been this thought maybe that healers in the spiritual realm shouldn't be compensated like other people, like a registered nurse or which we deserve compensation. We're working.
Yep.
But if anyone's trying to pull you in to be a subscriber or follow my channel, doing those kind of clickbait things that are pulling you in, you're not going to get this unless. I mean, it's just, to me, it's been a bit of a red flag because look what you're doing. It's about sharing information. I always think I'm here to share. Let's speak about what we do. And then if someone wants to come to you, they're going to feel compelled. They're going to feel that pull. There doesn't have to be that sort of sales pressure. But I think that goes back to the dawn of time again, just sort of like how we work and navigate this world we're in. And sometimes that's the essence of greed comes into play, or the idea, like the ego comes in and I need this many followers to feel like the work that I'm doing is really validated. And, I think that if you can touch one person, if you put a post on and you get one like, be proud of that. You touched one person today that needed to hear that message. And it doesn't have
and
to
that
always
person
be
might go out into the world and change something and save somebody's life because of what you shared.
Oh, I love that.
It's like, the ripple effect that most of the time we don't see and we don't hear about. And when people do share, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, that this thing I said changed how you thought about yourself or
Oh,
whatever. It's so amazing.
yes.
But yeah, that's like, it's such good medicine for our soul is taking that advice, because I think we're all struggling a lot with all the things going on in the world. So, and sadly, 2026 isn't going to change that in terms of
Mm-mm.
all the stuff that's coming online and all we're hearing about AI. So just use a lot of discernment and care, see how it feels for you.
Yes.
If it's not feeling good, then don't do it or don't watch it, or, you can create your own reality and what you want in this life. So, no one is in charge of you other than you.
I love that. Yes.
Yeah.
So well said.
Thank you. I'm so grateful. I feel like we might have to make this like a two-parter, but I'm so grateful for all the time and the energy and messages that you shared. So tell everyone where they can find you, and do you have any workshops or anything coming up?
As far as workshops, they will be upcoming. You can find me on Instagram on Watermelon Wellness. I have a website I need to get up and running. I do have my domain name saved for me. I have work I need to do, but for now, you
Okay.
can connect with me on Instagram anytime, DM me to book. And yeah, happy to connect with people. It's one of my favorite things to do. So I will continue to expand. If you are in Alberta, Canada, I do a lot of work locally. I can do in-person sessions and do my sound baths. So we'll have things expand in the future, but what exactly that looks like, it's sort of still in the works.
Well, get that website up and going, because I think a lot of
Okay.
people are going to be coming your way. So take some pressure off of having to book through Instagram, because I see lots of good stuff for you coming. So
Thank you, Heather. I think that is
yeah.
needed. I appreciate
Yes.
that nudge.
Yeah. That was a message for you. So
Exactly.
I know everyone is leaving here from potentially a two-parter with so much practical information, but so grateful for our conversation. I love everything that was shared. I know people needed to hear it. And as we start this new year and this new cycle, you are armed with so much information, and know that there's so much light and love that is out in the world, and you are a beacon of that as well. So take that with you and just try and approach this year with, I guess, a loving lens, bring in peace and ease, and try to maybe slow down a little bit. As much as the horse is going to be forward momentum, it doesn't mean that we don't rest. That doesn't mean hustle. It
True.
doesn't mean run ourselves into the ground. Horses do not run 24/7.
Yes.
They might run, but then they rest and they graze and they enjoy the sun and all the things. So take that as, we can do our forward movement, but also bring some peace and ease. And that's a message for me, because I need to do that too. So we'll
It's a
all do
message
this
for so
together on
many.
this journey. Yes.
I love
for
that.
sure.
Thank you. What a great way to wrap up everything
Yes.
and set
Yes.
ourselves up for the next year. I appreciate that
Yeah.
messaging so much. It was honestly an honor to connect with you. And I'm just grateful that you're doing the work you are and creating space for us to be heard. And thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you. All right. Until next time, everyone. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much for taking time out of your precious day to listen to our podcast. If this episode resonated with you, we would love for you to share it with someone you love. That would mean the world to us. Also, if you feel called, please follow our show so you will know when a new episode drops. If you want to go one step further, you can even rate this episode, as it allows our podcast to find its way to others. Lastly, we've done our best to share resources that you might find helpful in the show notes, whether that's a book recommendation or a website we referenced during the episode, a free resource, or more information on a guest who took their time to speak with us and share their knowledge. We would love for you to support their work too. You can find more information on our podcast website at becomingspiritual.me. We love you and can't wait for you to hear the next episode. Until then, know you have a place where you are welcome and you are loved. Welcome home.